This is not a new issue for Uber. This is an issue that's come up quite a bit for this company.
Well, the issue of sort of whether it's a misogynistic, bro-y culture has certainly dogged Uber for a while. Travis's own comments haven't helped the company. He called the company Boober at one point. So
it was a GQ interview, right?
Right, exactly. Now, the sort of specific sexual harassment allegations and sort of how the company's human resources team handled it, that's new and moving the conversation forward, and has certainly thrown the company into a bit of shock, trying to figure out how to react.
Tell us about that blog post and what it said, and it was an interesting read.
Yeah, I mean, this was Susan Fowler, a software engineer working on site reliability, and basically she said that one of her managers, sort of as soon as she joined the team, had messaged her and basically propositioned her, said that he was in an open relationship. And then almost more troubling, she says that she took that claim to Human Resources, and they basically said he was a high performer, so they weren't going to do anything about it. She could change teams or sort of deal with it. So pretty troubling allegations, and there's a lot more in her blog post.
I mentioned that this is, you mentioned the Boober thing, and there's also been sort of issues about what's happened with the company's response to complaints against drivers, rape allegations against drivers, and what the company's done to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, with the driver's side, there are millions of them, so, and sort of Uber's
millions of
drivers that they have to deal with, right? We don't actually know the incident rate, which sort of confuses the whole situation. But yeah, there have been questions about how they handle support, whether they sort of do enough background checks on drivers. So here we have, now 11,000 or more actual employees that they're worried about, but then they also have these millions of drivers where they've had to deal with all sorts of allegations there.
We refer to it in Tease as a startup, but I think that belies what this company really is.
Right.
You mentioned 11,000 employees, maybe 1 million drivers all over the world. This is a big company that seems to have some aspects of baby company behavior, and I don't mean that necessarily in an insulting way, but going through this kind of like cultural definition within the business, even though it's operating at a very large scale.
Right. I mean, it's nearly 8 years old. Like, our best guess for revenue last year was probably like 5.5 billion. So it's a big business, but it's had to grow very quickly. The majority of those 11,000 employees, I'd say they joined in the last 2 years. So a lot of the processes are still getting created, and there's that sort of historical Silicon Valley, like, we don't need HR, and Uber's tried to build the processes, but clearly they don't have everything that they need to have.
Well, and culture takes hold in ways you can't always control. I mean,
yeah.
When I was an investor, I used to go around, when I could visit a company, if I saw employees had their stuff in a box, like in a cardboard box on the desk or under the desk, that meant they were changing desks so often that the business is still growing, and I didn't want to be short, and I might want to own the stock.
Right.
I get the sense that Uber is the same kind of place where growth is happening and change is happening really, really fast.
Yeah, but that certainly doesn't excuse, if the allegations prove true. And the company, Travis just spoke to employees today, and they're definitely agonizing over this. He apologized for some of the company's cultural problems. So, there are companies that grow fast, break things, but you still don't want to have problems like Uber seems to be having right now.
It's interesting, too, the response so sudden. Travis addressing the team, hiring Eric Holder over the course of a weekend. These are very big moves. I mean, as if addressing a team is really hard to do, but I think it's probably hard for a company to figure out something they do need to do.
Yeah, this is a company that's had a lot of PR nightmares, so I think, especially after Delete Uber, they learned they need to respond very quickly. I also think they realize how serious this is. I mean, Uber is a software engineering company. They need to be able to recruit away from Google, Facebook. Google's known to be one of the happiest places to work. Airbnb is certainly.
And also known to pay top dollar.
Right, exactly. So if Uber starts to worry that software engineers are just going to leave because they think it's a hostile culture, that will put them at a major disadvantage to their competition.
And finally, do you think this is a sign that Uber is going to respond to these things more quickly than they have in the past?
I mean, I think, Eric Holder is about as top a gun as you could hire. So I think, they take this very seriously, and they're putting a lot behind it. Yeah, and we'll have to see.